So let's start by having a quick listen to the patch itself. So I've got envelope amount. So every note change it opens and closes the filter. You'll notice that there's an LFO going there as well. And I can increase the amount of LFO and also the shape as well. So at the minute it's a ramp down. Change it to a sine. Let's leave it on this one. And then we've got rate. Let's add a bit of delay and reverb. So it sounds lush with these on. And then next we've got detune and glide. So absolutely love detuning this sound. Just gets thicker and thicker. And then you can kind of knock it out for like a special effect. Great just before a build to like really detune that sound. And lastly, we've got glide. So I'll bring this all the way up. Glides between the notes. And don't forget, you've always got the cutoff as well. And you can mess with the resonance. So I know when I build these patches, I always give you 8 macros, but by default, every patch I make's also obviously got the cutoff and the resonance there as well, which I often go to and play around with, which is why you won't always see a cutoff on here. As I've seen with other people's patches, I'll leave it on there because you've got that indefinite start and end point there on the cutoff, which is useful instead of an endless macro. So I much prefer to play with the cutoff there. I'll always set them at a good starting point though, and then you can open and close it as you see fit. So the first thing I'm going to do now is just basically bring up a blank patch. See, I really like that patch. It's kind of in between a bass and a synth and a pad sound. It's like all three in one. And if you was going to use that in a track, then it would eat up the whole frequency range. So it would be like a main sound. And the other thing as well is it's quite a wide sound. You'll see in a second when we set up the voice in. It's like super wide. So for a bass, if you're going to put it into a production, I had no options to do this within the patch. So if you was going to put it into production, I'd look at the mono compatibility and bring down the width of like the sub 150 or 200 hertz area down to the sub, make that mono so it fits as a bass because it is like super wide. So yeah, let's take a look at the voicing first. So first thing I want to do is put this on a unison, and then we're going to stack it so there's 8 of them. Let's have a quick listen to that. And then we've obviously got the detune there, but I want to leave the detune all the way down because remember we had the detune macro, that's going to open that up. And then the stereo width, all the way open. This is what I was saying. So for a bass sound, it's 8 voices that are spread. It's pretty intense if you've got 8 subs going across. So you might want to look at that if you put this into a track. Analog flavor, let's bring this right up so we can create some unstableness in the filters and the oscillators. One mode on, as I said before, and usually put this on, it just rolls off the top end, makes it less harsh and digital sounding. And then we want to take a look at the glide. So with the glide, I'm going to leave the time all the way down. So because we're going to open that up ourselves with a macro. And then leave this curve on -64 and then leave glide legato off. So that's it for the voicing. Next, we need to take a look at the oscillator. So this is a stack of 3 oscillators and a noise mix as well. And the first thing I want to do is take a look at oscillator 1 and we'll work our way through. So the first oscillator that we're going to go for is a single mode oscillator. And we're going to go for a wave called Orland. Have I just gone all? I don't know how I did that so quickly. I managed to go through all of them really fast then. I think I just twisted it too fast. There we go, Orland 5. So thankfully it was towards the back end anyway. And then we want to bring the semitones down to -24. So 2 octaves down. Let me just go to the amp actually, just bring that down a little bit because it's super loud. And then what I want to do after that is look at the mix. So yeah, mix 128, that's where I need it. And then oscillator 2, let's bring this up a little bit. So yep, oscillator 2, and then we're going to bring this down -9. So effectively that's a +3. So we're creating a chord with this. And for this one, we want to go all and 5 again. There we go. So that's starting to sound nice. And then lastly, I want to bring up the third oscillator. And with this oscillator, I want to keep it on a saw. We'll go minus 36. And this is for that kind of sub low bass sound. So we've got one at minus 24, we've got one at minus 9, and then we've got the bassy one, which is sawtooth at minus 36. Let's also add in the noise. So again, I often add this into my patches just to give it that kind of like analog, broken, noisy grit. And then want to take a look at the mutants next. So we're going to set mutants on 1 and 3, and these are both going to be FM. Sine, both going to be on ratio 1, and then the depth mounts are going to be slightly different. So let's take a look at this one first. Go for around there, bring this down to 50, and then this one, bring a little bit of this up. Yep, around there, that sounds good. And now we're going to take a look at the filter. So LP Fat 12 is what I'm going to go for again for this one. I'm going to bring the cutoff down, so it's really deep. And then let's add a bit of resonance. And then key tracking down quite a lot actually, so it doesn't jump too much when the higher notes come in. And then we've got drive. Let's add a bit of that. And now the next thing I want to do is we've got the envelope 1 amount. I want to leave that at 0, and then I want to create a macro for this. So sine filter 1 cut off, and then we want envelope amount. And let's find the sweet spot for this. So like the maximum point that we want it to hit. And then the next thing I want to do is go to envelope 1. And we just need to shape this now. So I'm actually going to go for BPM sync on. Let's go for quarter notes on that. Quarter note dotted for this one. Sustain all the way down. Release up a little bit. And then let's take a look at the curves now. So that sounds good. And then the next thing I want to look at is, actually before I do that, let's name this. So I'm going to call this envelope amount. There we go, let's leave it there while we work on the rest of it. So the next one I want to look at is LFO1. We're going to send that to the filter cutoff. Around there will do as a starting point. And then for the LFO, let's put on the BPM sync. Let's go for 1/8 dotted. I'm going to leave that on sine. And then we've got the fade in, so let's add a bit of a fade in for this. Yeah, right there. So that's allowing the envelope to do its thing before this kicks in, so it fades the LFO in afterwards. And then the next thing I want to do is to come out of that. And let's set up some macros on the bottom row, because I want to keep these modulation ones separate. So for this one, macro 5, we are going to assign, so mod matrix depth 1. So if we look at mod matrix, we've got this depth here, which is the filter 1 going to the cutoff. Sorry, not filter 1 going to cutoff, sorry. LFO 1 going to the filter 1 cutoff. So it's that modulation, we're going to increase the amount of that. Assign, and then you want to go mod matrix depth 1. And then if we just bring up the macro all the way up and then start to increase this. So that's probably about the max that I want to take it. And let's label this. So we're going for LFO amount. Let's leave a little bit of that on there, like that. And then macro 6, I want to set up that rate so we can change the speed of the LFO. So let's go to macro 7, no, sorry, 6. Assign LFO1 rate. Bring this depth mount all the way up. Find a maximum sweet spot for it, probably around there. And I want to call this one LFO rate. So we haven't got an LFO rate. So if we put it there first, and then we can change this letter in. Let me just turn it down a bit. Right, so let's just go rat. That'll do. So yeah, that works quite nice. And then we're going to set up that alternate LFO shape now. So at the minute, it's obviously a sine wave. What I want to do is I want to switch this to a saw down using a macro. So let's take a look at that, right? So the way that we do this, right, is we set up another LFO. And for this one, because we instead of like, we can't change that waveform. What we have to do is bring the level down of this one and bring the level up of the second one and mix them. So this first one, obviously the sine, let's take that down for now and listen to this one. This one, I want to put this one on a saw down. BPM on, again, 1/8 dotted to match it. Single trig, BPM on. Delay, we'll leave that, but then we need to put the fade in on there. In fact, oh yeah, I think we do need to do this, yeah. Let me have a look. So fade in half. I was going to say we could leave that one off for this one, but I'm going to put it on. And then, yeah, level needs to be at 0. So let's go back to this one and put that level back up. So mod matrix next. We have got LFO2 to the cutoff. And then we want to copy what's there, or near enough. So let's just put it there. And let's set up the macro now. So macro 7. And then we're going to assign LFO1 level minus. So when we bring that up, it turns it off. And then we go to LFO2 level, put that in the plus. And now we've got the ability to change between. There's one more step to this though. So for LFO2, we also need the same amount and rate settings for LFO2 as well. So we need to go into these and copy the settings over. So for this one, what we need to do is we need to go to the second slot and change this one to depth 2. And we're just copying the settings over. And then for the LFO rate, assign LFO2 rate. And lastly, let's go in and name this one. So for this one, we are going to call it alternate LFO shape. I don't think that's going to be in here, so let's just call it LFO SHP. I can't remember what I actually called that on the original preset, but we'll just go for that for this. So let's just check this out now and see if it works. That's the alternate LFO. And then we can change the amount. If we go back to the sine wave, the amount also works for that. And then let's just check the rate. Yep, so you can see these work for both of those. Let's leave it on this one, add a little bit of amount there. And now I'm just gonna tweak the amp level. I think that's fine where it is. And then we need to look at envelope 2 now. So let's just, for the amp, let's just put on a little bit of release. So that just means if we stop playing, we just create a little bit of a softer ending on the sound. If I bring it all the way up, it carries on playing. So it's just like you don't want a dead stop like that. So I'm just going to bring this up a little bit, maybe like 100 milliseconds or roundabouts there. Yep, and now let's do macro 2. So macro 2 is going to be the detune. And this is quite simple on setup. We just go assign, voice, detune, 1 to 8. And let's label that. So there is no detune. I forgot that there isn't one in there, but it's quite easy. If you just go to decay and then just type the rest in. There we go. Let's just test that now. Let's leave a little bit of that on while I work on the rest of the track, the rest of the patch. So the next macro that I want to work on is macro 3, and this one is going to be for the glide. So we're going to go assign, we're going to go voice, and then we're going to go glide time. So around there for maximum. List name, let's just go for glide. I think that should be in here. Glide time is there, yep, we'll go for that. Right, let's set up the last bit now, which is effects. I always do the effects at the end, and then we've also got the 2 macros for the effects as well. So first one I want to look at is the delay, so let's bring this up. Gonna go for left, right, center delay, so we've got 3 delay lanes. Center, left, and right. And then we want BPM sync on for this. Let's go for 1/8. Add quite a bit of feedback there. Wet tone, we're going to bring this up just to knock out the sub frequencies. And then the feed tone, what that does is it dampens the feedback tone. It'd probably work better if I bring this down actually, but can't really hear it that much. One sec. So you can hear it coming down. Let me just bring that down. Yeah, so basically that just adds a little bit of kind of dampening on the top as the delays feedback comes down a little bit. It kind of dampens it as well. So we'll add a little bit of that in. Let me just bring this feed tone back to where it was. So it was about 17. That was about 40. And then the feed tone, so I want to put that around, I think it was 57-ish. And the wet, we're going to put this at 0 because remember we're going to use a macro for that. Let's set that up now. So macro 4, we're going to go delay wet. Around 59, and then also let's add one for the amp because we need to just readjust the level to compensate. So around 8. Then we don't get any level drop. Now let's sort the reverb out. So I'm going to go for a hall for this. Leave pre-delay where it is. Add quite a lot of reverb time. And then knock out all of the like sub frequencies. Bring the damp up. Maybe not that much. And then again, wet 0. Let's set up macro 8 now. So macro 8 is to bring up the reverb wet. And then we just need to label these. So we've got list name. Let's just go for reverb. And then obviously on this one, we go for delay. And I think that's pretty much it. So let's just test this now. Yeah, that works nicely. So there you go, there's the second bass patch, and now we're going to start to take a look at some leads and plucks.